Hey, Jamie here, and welcome to Module 1, Part 1. I'm extremely excited to get started with you, and I hope you are too. If you could either have a journal or a notebook or something with you that you can write down any thoughts or notes or questions that you have while going through the module or this first part, and then also you can also use a computer if that's easier for you, whether that's a Google Sheet or a Word doc or whatever else you might be using, Evernote, etc. But so in Module 1, Career Clarity and the Marketplace, Part 1, Career Clarity, what we're going to be focusing on is understanding what are the human needs, what is fulfillment, and why do most people not like their work. And I'm sure you'll be blown away by how many people don't like their work. And then we'll also understand the connection between human needs, self-actualization, and Ikigai, and I'll describe what those are. And then finally, we're going to cover what are the two required variables in order to have career clarity long term. So right now, there is a very large problem within the world, and it's not a problem that's new. It's something that has consistently it's always existed, last 6,000 years plus, and 85% of the world, at least this was according to a recent survey, 85% of the people in the world don't like their jobs. And that also includes both developing as well as developed nations. So it's not just first world nations. This survey also included second and third world. But even in a lot of the developed nations, so think North America, you have Europe, most parts of Europe, and then you also have several of the larger developed nations within Asia. But even in the U.S., 75% of the people, or 3/4 of the people, don't like their work. And why do you think that globally systemic problem exists? So take a second and think about what first comes to your mind when I ask the question, why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why do you go to work? Do you have to? Do you want to? Is it something that you feel that you would absolutely need to no matter what? What are the main reasons why you get out of bed in the morning? And what I've found after working with many, many people, and I'm sure that you'll be similar thinking in many ways to most people, but most people are really working for non-motivating reasons. And it's because we're not taught in school growing up how to have purpose in our careers, how to have purpose in our lives. And what I mean by a non-motivating reason is the reason you're working doesn't inspire you to want more. Does it inspire you to do more? Does it further motivate you to become the absolute best that you can become and continue growing? So, for example, most people, when I ask the question, why do you get out of bed in the morning? The most common responses are, well, I have to pay the bills. I need money, obviously. But then also to support myself or to support my family. And the next part would be travel, hobbies, really just luxury. I mean, just being able to afford the finer things in life, enjoy yourself, and be able to actually do something that you enjoy. And then retirement and savings, being able to take care of yourself and not have to work until you die, but hitting the point where you are 60 or 65 and being able to retire. Comfort and security, so being able to live where you want to live, eat how you want to live, and know that you will be taken care of. You can afford to pay the bills, keep the lights on, keep the water running, etc. And then every now and then I'll work with someone who's just in a dark place and they'll just say, because I have to. And at that point I know, like, all right, this person definitely needs some more meaningful work in their life. So what I've found, and this is consistent with all the research and everything else I've studied on this, but most people are working for money or for what money can buy. And diving into why this is a problem and the psychology behind it, it starts with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm sure you've probably seen this before. Most people are somewhat familiar with it, but we were never actually taught how to use it like a tool, how to think of it as a map for making decisions. And so just as a brief summary again, so at the very bottom, you have your physiological needs, which are air, water, food, shelter, just survival. And then after that, you have your safety needs. So knowing that if I walk outside of this door, I'm not going to be robbed. Because if I did, then if I felt that way, I probably wouldn't live here. I'd move. And so Maslow kind of stacked these on top of one another in order of what he believed the way that people approach these. So first and foremost, people would always make decisions in order to cover their physiological needs. And then once that was taken care of, then they would make decisions based on their safety needs. And then they would make decisions based on love and belonging. So think of that as personal relationships, whether that's friendships, intimate relationships, extended parts of the family, colleagues, etc., but really just human connection. And then after that was esteem needs. So this is the feeling of needing to feel important or having influence or respect, money, status, esteem, freedom, etc. So this is when you think people making decisions based on prestige and money or reputation and status among peers, kind of the constantly comparing yourself to other people, really that's this fourth bucket, which is esteem. But then at the top is the one that most people have forgotten about. And that was what Maslow had called self-actualization, or the desire to become the most that one can become. So achieving your greatest personal potential, whatever that is in whatever area of your life. So the next part that Maslow had broken down was the difference between deficiency needs and growth needs. And so you can see it kind of splits where the bottom four, physiological, safety, love and belonging, esteem, he had figured out through researching and pretty much running experiments with a lot of people, he had found that motivation decreases after you reach a certain point within those four buckets. So, for example, the physiological needs, once you eat enough food where you're ready to explode, you don't want more food. Your motivation decreases to keep eating and you're satiated. Same thing with safety. Once you hit a point where you feel pretty safe, you don't actively go out of your way to make even more decisions to become even more safe. Like, you feel safe, I'm good. So, love and belonging and esteem, and I think with esteem too, it's a good example would be many people have heard of the statistic that between $75,000 and $85,000, most people hit a point where they become complacent or very comfortable with the amount of money that they make. And they're no longer very driven or motivated to do more within their career in order to make a lot more money. And so you can think of that as motivation planing and becoming stagnant and people becoming complacent. And that's human nature. That is when your life is driven by these bottom four, that does lead to complacency. But then on the top, the self-actualization, a good example there would be if you really deeply enjoy something. So a sport, for example, most people who deeply enjoy a specific sport, they play that sport and they get better. And as they get better, they can all of a sudden, outcompete other people. And they can personally see their own progress, but then they can also see their progress relative to other people. And so their motivation increases to continue getting better at the sport. And they want to continue getting better and better and better until eventually they're where they believe the best where they can become, or hopefully continuously striving. So motivation continues to increase whenever you are driven by your own desire to become the best or even better at a specific thing. So, Ray Dalio, I'm not sure, you may be familiar with him. A lot of people aren't outside of the finance community. But Ray Dalio is a pretty incredible guy. And he's the founder and CIO of Bridgewater Associates. So it's $140 billion. It's really the world's largest hedge fund. And he's also the 46th wealthiest person in the world as of the end of 2020. But the reason I find him so interesting and the reason I follow his work so closely and why I look to him to learn in so many different ways is he's completely self-made. So he started with nothing, and he started his Bridgewater Associates out of his apartment by himself in 1975 and built it from the ground up. No financing. He personally financed it with the thousands of dollars that he started with that he'd saved from his prior work, but he started everything on his own and built it. And there was actually a point in his career where everything had fallen apart and he had to rebuild it again. But in a lot of the interviews and in a lot of the recommendations that he's had for people who are either early or mid-career, even senior professionals, when people have consistently asked him, what do you recommend we need to do in order to become successful, whether personally or professionally? And his same two responses were consistently personal development and self-actualization. And so we'll be diving into both of those pretty deeply. So then the next kind of advancement in terms of human needs and psychology, and the reason I bring up the human needs and the psychology is a lot of people feel empty in their careers. A lot of people wake up working for money, paying the bills, and they're really like, oh my God, am I going to do this for the rest of my life? Is this the rest of my life? And they don't have that sense of fulfillment, that sense of meaning, the sense of purpose in their work. And this is why the human needs are so important to understand, because this is the juice. Like when you can understand what fills you, you can start to make decisions to align your life with that juice. So Tony Robbins, he had studied all things psychology, and it was, I believe, 90s or early 2000s when he had arrived at, after more than 30 or 40 years of working in psychology and changing people's lives, he realized that there were some inconsistencies with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So for example, if I go back to that, so for example, he would see that, all right, well, if esteem need is a number 4 priority and love and belonging is a number 3, technically most people should be valuing their family, their friends, etc., before money, status, esteem, reputation, etc. But he was finding that there were often a lot of people that were making decisions that were putting and prioritizing their career or money or status or influence above their family and friends. And so that was just an example where kind of this very rigid pyramid was breaking down. And so one of the things that Tony ended up realizing were there were 6 human needs, and everybody prioritizes them differently. So we all have these 6 needs, but there are 4 that we will always meet. And he called these the physical needs. And there are 2 that many people are missing or not meeting. And he called those the spiritual needs, or really the fulfillment needs. So these first 4 physical needs, certainty, variety, love and connection, and significance, those were ones that people would meet in either an empowering or a disempowering way. So in a good, healthy way or in a bad way. So for example, drugs, addiction, even an addiction like video game addiction. There was certainty that if I did this thing, I would find it enjoyable. Variety, there was always a next level, or in the case of drugs or alcohol or anything like that, you could instantly change your physiology and how you felt. And love and connection, if people were doing, let's say they were a part of a bad gang or a cult or anything like that, or even just a bad group of friends, at least they're connected. And then in terms of significance, people would do things that they knew were wrong, but made them either powerful, important, threatening, or something like that. So those are all examples of bad ways of meeting these needs, but people still meet them. And then in terms of a good way, so if we were to think about a family or an intimate relationship, certainty is having certainty and trust that whoever your partner is, whether it's a loved one or a friend or whatever, but there's a mutual trust and mutual connection between you two. So that's both certainty as well as love and connection. But then in terms of variety, the example I love is, imagine you were to go to dinner and it's a date, whether your partner, you guys sit down and the two of you order the same food, you go to the same restaurant, you have the same conversation and the same dessert, the same drinks, and then you go home and have the exact same evening, and that's your date night. And you do it over and over and over and over and over again. You'd probably go insane. You probably wouldn't stay with the person because there's no variety. And that's when people say variety is the spice of life. It's, yes, you need some variety, but at the same time, you also want some certainty in the relationship. So, and then the last part is significance. People either can get significance in bad ways or good ways. And an example of a good way is, think of going out of your way to give to someone else, to do something that was totally unexpected or unasked for, but you did it because that other person was so important to you. Well, by doing that, you actually are fulfilling your need for significance because they will value you more as a friend, as a lover, etc. So those are the physical needs, and everybody will meet them. But then there are the spiritual needs, or the fulfillment needs, which is growth and contribution. So growth is you making progress or developing yourself or getting better in some way, shape, or form. And this is why a lot of people, when they're in a job or a career path where they stopped growing, where they're not being challenged, where they're not learning new things, where they're not being given more responsibility, or they're not advancing and getting a promotion or even receiving a raise, that growth need is missing. And so in terms of the fulfillment, the person feels empty inside. They're like, oh my gosh, how long am I going to be stuck here? But then the sixth one is contribution, which is a sense that you are doing something meaningful. You're contributing to something that you personally care about. And the reason I stress that you personally care about is, again, everybody values things completely differently. So what I value may be totally different from what you value. What you value could be totally different from what other people in your family value. And same thing with your friends, etc. So what I find interesting and crucial and important in my life that I'm working towards and contributing to could be entirely different from what that is and really what you find important. So when we think about what are self-actualized needs, or that very top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that top part of the pyramid is growth and contribution. That's what Maslow is trying to get at, is by becoming the most that you can become, and by doing so in a way that is meaningful to something that you personally care about, whether it's another person or a group or a community or a project or some outcome or long-term goal, you're growing personally while at the same time doing meaningful work. And that makes you feel fulfilled. So in terms of personal growth, you can think of that as your skills, whether it's technical skills or soft skills, your knowledge, your ability to be creative, responsibility, being able to take on more responsibility in your personal life or your professional life, having more influence, your leadership ability in working with other people, progress, making progress in long-term goals or your personal life, and then getting results. It feels really good to confirm the fact that, yes, I've made this progress, but I also got the long-term result. And that's why we feel so satisfied when we achieve really big long-term goals, but we feel really little satisfaction when it's something that was super easy to do, maybe only took a couple minutes. There's not really that much satisfaction in short-term, very easy goals. So, and then in terms of contribution, you can think of this as adding value to the world. And adding value to the world can be in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't need to be monetary. So, for example, Mother Teresa, her adding value to the world was devoting her life to people in India that were in the slums and they needed that help. And she devoted her life to it. And then adding value to the world, making an impact, helping others, and doing meaningful work. So for us and many people, whatever it is that you're focusing currently on in your career, contribution is knowing that the work you're doing, you personally care about the outcome of that work. And a lot of people feel that they're doing work and they're either sending it to a client or to a boss or to someone else on the team, but it's like they finish it and then it's almost as if it's being sent into a black hole or gone into existence. And it's like once you send it, you don't see the end result. You feel like a cog, like I'm doing this work, but I never, what is the importance of the work? And so in that case, you or someone else in that scenario would feel like they're missing that sense of contribution to a larger project, a larger outcome, etc. So the question is how many people actually focus on purpose? And it's very few. Very few people know why they get out of bed in the morning. Very few people are motivated by the work that they're doing. And that is the biggest root cause. That is the root cause of global career disengagement and unhappiness at work, not just in the United States, not just in Europe, but literally globally. Because so many people are waking up for a paycheck. And even if that's a really big paycheck, it doesn't matter. The sense of purpose, the sense of meaning, that sense of fulfillment is missing because they're waking up to go make money. And money is not, it's a means of happiness. And a lot of people say money can't buy happiness, or some other people argue that it can. But again, most people are working for money, and realistically what they're working for is what money can buy. But at the end of the day, that is not it's not fulfilling those two human needs, growth and contribution, that you need in order to feel important, in order to feel fulfilled and happy. So what that means is there is a very large negative feedback loop when someone is missing a sense of purpose. And so that lack of purpose in their career and their work leads to a lack of internal motivation to get better or to improve or to work harder in their career. And so that lack of motivation then leads to a lack of personal growth, a lack of creativity, a lack of problem solving, engagement, and initiative in their professional career. And that lack of personal growth is then going to lead to complacency, comfort, and an understanding that I'm just going to meet my expectations. Now, there's also achievers out there too that they say, well, I never meet expectations. I always exceed expectations. And there's a lot of people like that, whether you want to call them type A personalities or whatever. But even them meeting or beating expectations, they're only exceeding expectations by, call it, let's say they do 110% or 120%. Those same people are capable of doing 200% or 300%. I promise you are capable, and I'm sure that you feel this way too. You know deep down in your heart that if you really wanted to, you could do a lot more. But the thing is you're not motivated to, and it's because you're missing that sense of purpose. So that sense of complacency or just getting by, that sense of meeting expectations, you cannot achieve your personal greatest potential when you don't have that sense of purpose, that sense of I need to push myself. I have to, because it's that important to me. So meeting expectations and complacency then leads to a focus on money, a focus on work-life balance, and really everything besides work. Now, I want to be clear here too, because I'm a big advocate of work-life balance. Working 100 hours a week is detrimental to your health, your mind, your sleep, literally everything. And so I still firmly believe in work-life balance, but who's to decide what is the right amount of work and what is the right amount of life? And that's the tough question, because there is no right or wrong answer. Someone who loves what they do will literally want to work more because they love that. And there's some people who literally need to work less because they need to focus on their health. They need to focus on their sleep, their family, their friends, etc., their self-care. So work-life balance, again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that's a bad thing here. It's just when you don't like the work, obviously you're going to focus on life. And so there's a very strong push for more work-life balance and really everything besides work. Because if you don't love what you do, you want to do less of it while at the same time getting the same paycheck. So trying to get the same amount for less. Why would we not want that if we don't love our work? So then that focus on literally everything besides work then leads to poor leadership, weak relationships with managers, because you have, if that's how it is at the most junior level of the company, well, those are the same people that are being promoted and moving up within the company. So it's not just the individual contributors and the more junior employees that feel that way. Oftentimes it's also the managers and leadership. So then that leads to weak relationships, which then leads to micromanagement and giving direct orders, as opposed to people taking the extra time and effort after hours or before hours in order to train, develop, and mentor their people within the company. So that lack of mentorship and that micromanagement and giving direct orders then leads to a lack of autonomy, a lack of decision-making due to trust issues, and even weaker relationships. So that then leads to growing employee frustration, resentment, and disengagement, because no one likes to be told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, with whom to do it. So that is, I think, where a lot of people get frustrated in their jobs, is the micromanagement part. And then that leads to high employee turnover, because in a free will economy, people are going to say, all right, well, I'm only going to put up with this for so long as they can find another job. They find that other job, they leave. That leads to continuously churn within the company, which then leads to even weaker relationships, stronger micromanagement problems, deeper trust issues within the company and the people within the company, and even worse management problems, which then leads to bad workplace culture and environment, and the cycle continues. So a lot of people, if you read articles, if you're following anybody, really most of the HR industry, etc., most people think the problem is work-life balance. And the problem is not work-life balance. To start with, the deepest problem, the root cause, is people don't like what they do. And when you don't like what you do, of course you're going to want to work less. So the 40-hour work week is not the problem, or the 50-hour work week is not the problem. In the last 6,000 years of human history, we work less now than we've ever worked in human history. And that's because of technology, that's because of healthcare, that's because of all these advancements that as humans we've created. And so the problem is not work-life balance. The problem is we don't like what we do, and we know that we have options. And that's the biggest problem. So you cannot achieve your personal life's greatest potential without a sense of purpose. And it's a human need that you must meet. But then that kind of leads to the question is, well, all right, if a lot of people don't like what they do, then why do they keep climbing the corporate ladder? And it's really because there is one of the fulfilling needs that's fulfilled, and that's growth. So the main reasons why people climb the corporate ladder is they want more money, and they also want more responsibility and more leadership, more influence, and the ability to add more value. And that is really driven by money and significance as well as growth. But there have been people, and there's one woman specifically that I think of continuously when I get to this slide, but there was someone I had worked with who was her early 50s, very successful. She had all the money she could ever possibly need, very large six-figure salary that most people think that is the pinnacle of success. You know, she's achieved the top of the ladder. And she was one of the top 5 people at the company. It was a multi-$100 million company that she helped expand to Europe as well as open offices in Latin America. And she was also brought on to projects for Asia, and very, very successful. But the thing is she was describing to me that she's wealthy, but she's not happy. And she said that she wasn't the only one that she knew who felt that way. And when I asked, how long have you thought that way? She's like, a long time. I don't know. I don't know for how long, but a long time. And really what it came down to was she was now at the top and she lost the sense of growth. And that's what had been motivating her for so long, because she wasn't necessarily doing it for the money, but she loved the sense of growth, of moving up within the company, of being promoted, of taking on more responsibility, leading larger teams, being able to benefit and help more people within the company. But she eventually hit a point where she realized, I'm at the top, I don't love what my company does, and I don't want to do this anymore. And the money wasn't satisfying to her. Nothing was satisfying anymore about it. And it wasn't that she was ungrateful. It's just she realized she was at the point, she had all the money she could need, and she wanted to ask herself, what can I do with my life that I would genuinely love? Because she wasn't getting it. So a lot of people end up this way if they never take the time to sit back and reflect on what would actually make me happy. What is a sense of purpose, whether it's a mission that I would love to contribute to that would lead to a sense of fulfillment, knowing my work I'm doing important work. So a lot of people end up wealthy, but often unhappy. And you can very quickly kind of distinguish who falls in this bucket and who doesn't based on, do they enjoy talking about their work? If someone doesn't like talking about their work and they do everything that they possibly can think of to keep their work and their life, their personal life separate, these people are essentially splitting themselves in half, where on the weekends they only focus on their personal life, their family, their friends, etc., and their brains completely turn off in terms of work. And then during the work week, Monday through Friday, they're fully plugged in and they're doing what needs to be done. But once they leave the office, maybe they'll answer a couple of emails, but again, they're trying to turn their mind completely off from the workplace because they don't enjoy talking about it. So you can think of it as most people are missing the other half. So these two fulfillment needs, growth and contribution, are both positive feedback cycles. They both continuously motivate you to want more, to do more, to become better. So on the right side, which is the side that these types of people have who are pursuing and chasing the corporate ladder, growth leads to increased skills, knowledge, creativity, innovation, and problem solving, which means that you have an increased ability as you learn more to do more. And that means that you're going to be given more responsibility, have more opportunities, have more influence, leadership, and autonomy. And then you're going to be allowed to take larger actions with bigger results and bigger rewards, and that will continuously motivate you. But then on the left side, you have the contribution, which is the half that most people are missing. It's the sense of You're doing work where you feel like you're making an impact, you feel like it's meaningful, and your work is giving you a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And when you have that sense, that's going to lead to sustained progress in work over the long term, which means that you're going to make more progress, take bigger actions, or continue taking action, which is going to lead to results and more rewards, and that continuously motivates you. So, how do you discover purpose? And this is the question that, this is the $1 million question that everyone wants to know. And it's something that as hard as I tried to figure it out, I did Lord knows how many hours of research to try to figure this out. But I eventually realized that this was a question that people have been asking for thousands of years. And if you read back to Socrates, if you read back to Marcus Aurelius or any of the other philosophers or other people in the past, whether it's Western civilization or Eastern civilizations, or even religious texts, people have always been asking this question. And so one of the simplest, easiest ways that I've found to think about finding fulfillment and purpose in life is there was a small group of wise people more than 1,000 years ago who created something called Ikigai. And Ikigai was from Japan, from Okinawa. And two really interesting things about Okinawa. So one, they have the happiest people on earth consistently. And then they also have the longest living people on earth as well, based on their diet, their longevity, and how they think about health and wellness. But anyways, and I also think Ikigai plays into that health and wellness because the happier you are, you will live longer because you have a sense of purpose. Like, I need to stay alive. So anyways, all right. So you have the 4 areas: what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. Now, these 4 areas, think of this as a map, and you can decide what you believe need to be in these 4 different areas, and you can choose how they overlap. So kind of breaking this down, again, you have those 4 different spheres that make up Ikigai, and where they overlap will determine what that intersection is. So, for example, what you love and what you're good at. A lot of people say love music, or they love art, or they love dancing, or they love reading. Well, they love that, and they've become good at it through practice, but they're not making money on it, and they're also not really pursuing it for other people or for some important outcome. They're really just doing it for pleasure. So for them, it's a passion. But then you have what you're good at and what you can be paid for. And think of this as the main reason why most people go to school. We go to school because most of us grew up K through 12. We were taught that if you need to go to college, you need to get an education, you need to get a degree. And then at college, most people choose majors, or a lot of people are pushed or really told to focus on getting a major that's going to give them a technical skill set, whether that's accounting or finance or marketing or supply chain / operations or a certain type of engineering or computer programming, etc. But you acquire a skill set that allows you to make money in the marketplace. When you graduate, you can get a job, earn a salary, and make money. So most people, especially in, I would say, Western civilization, where we're taught, and also now Eastern, but we're taught, go to college, get a skill, go make money. Most of us are missing those other 2 spheres, what you love and what other people need. And that is why so many people are missing that sense of purpose and fulfillment in their jobs, is they feel like, I'm doing this work for money, and like, how is that it? Is that life? Is that my career? So profession, most people have a profession, but they're missing the other 2 spheres. So what you can be paid for and what other people need, where that overlaps, that's a vocation. And then one of the things that I love was Mark Twain. So his advice to people that they wanted to pursue success, but at the same time find fulfillment, his quote was, "The secret to success is to make your vocation your vacation," which really what he's saying is you need to include that to something that you love. It has to be something you enjoy. So, and then the final overlap is what you love and what other people need. And that is a mission. It's a calling. It's something that you deeply resonate with it yourself, and you know that it is important to other people as well. And that's the connection. That is the mission, where it's not just you on this mission. Lots of people are on this mission. It's important to a lot of people. So when I think about, how do you use this for your life? How do you use this for your personal life and your professional career? There's 4 inputs, and you can solve for these inputs. And in the top, for what you love, you can think of that as your personal interests. And really, your personal interests are built on your beliefs and values. So that's also why I have that in there. But in terms of interest, think of an interest as something that you enjoy, because a lot of people say, all right, well, I'm interested in guitar. I can't make a living on guitar. One, you can make a living in anything. But certain areas obviously are going to be a lot more difficult than others just based on competition. If you're going to try and make a living on guitar, you're going to have to be very good. But it is possible, and there are people in the world who make a living on guitar. But in terms of interest, a lot of people jump to sports or music or reading or art or something like that. But I would challenge you to think about interest in a different way. Think about interest as something that you can talk about, learn about, read about, think about, and maybe even write. Like, it's something that it's not challenging for you to focus on it. You actually genuinely enjoy learning more about it, reading more about it, and talking about it with other people and thinking about it on your own time. And that expands things to a lot of different areas. So then you have growth, and that's the second area. So what are you good at? And the reason I say growth as an input is you can become good at anything that you want. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on that point, because they say, well, some people are born with natural talent and they kind of have the, environmental growth versus the genetic gene pool debate. I'm in the camp that I truly believe if you have a perfectly working brain and a healthy body, and barring any limitations or handicaps that you have, whether mentally or physically, I truly do believe that if you put your mind to something, if you focus on something, you can get better at it, you can improve your skill at it, and you can become valuable at it. So I believe you can choose to be good at anything that you want to. It just takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes energy, and you have to relentlessly develop yourself. So then the third input is skills, knowledge, creativity, and leadership. And this is why you make money. This is why people pay you money in the marketplace. So if you work for a company, they're paying you for your skills, your knowledge, your creativity, and your leadership, your ability to solve problems, critically think, and improve the company to make progress. But at the same time, if you're not working for a company, you can freelance, you can start your own business. And in the exact same way, the clients that you work with or the customers that you have, they're paying you again for your skills, your knowledge, your creativity, and your leadership. Even if you're selling a product, you still had to create the product. That's still creativity. And knowledge and leadership would really be your ability to sell the thing. So no matter what, in any way, shape, or form, if someone is paying you money, they're paying you money for skills, knowledge, creativity, and leadership. So, and again, that's assuming that you're working. It's not, you're lending someone money and they're paying you interest. This is assuming that you are working for, you're putting in labor hours or time yourself based on your mind and your abilities. All right. So then you have the last part, which is contribution. And contribution is knowing that your work is, you're doing work that is meaningful not only to you, but it's important to other people as well. Or the impact of your work is very beneficial for other people or for a project or for some outcome or opportunity that really excites you. So how we're going to do this, and when you think about career clarity, one of the easiest ways that you can think about how do I build a career and life that would, one, be extremely fulfilling and extremely exciting for me, but at the same time make me a lot of money, and you are building wealth. And I truly believe a lot of people think that in order to have a purposeful life or to feel fulfilled, you need to go into nonprofit, make 30 grand a year, and that's the rest of your life. And that's not how it needs to be. I'm sure that there are other people who are doing that are extremely exciting, or extremely excited and very happy with their lives. But I do believe that as a human being, you need to grow, you need to expand, you need to become all that you can become. We were not put on this earth to be limited. And so there's no reason that you can't do something that you love while at the same time being compensated for you consistently getting better at whatever it is you do and being able to add more value to other people in the world, other people in their lives. So deliberate purpose and strategic growth, those are the two variables that we need to lock down and define for you and your career in order to make sure that you are fulfilled while at the same time building a lot of wealth. So what that means is, again, self-actualization. I think that the best model I've been able to find in terms of a map on how to consistently build it, I think that self-actualization is really Ikigai. And for you, what we're going to be focusing on is defining deliberate purpose. How do you define that? How do you choose a mission that you personally care for? But then also strategic growth is, how do you develop the skills, the knowledge, the creativity, and the leadership consistently and also strategically, where you are building valuable skills, knowledge, creativity, and leadership that you will be paid for. There's a lot of people that are learning, but they're not necessarily learning strategically. They're not learning in a way that is going to benefit their careers. They're learning for enjoyment, which isn't a bad thing as long as they view it as entertainment and enjoyment. But how can you learn strategically so that you will make a lot of money? And I truly believe, again, I'm in the camp that there's absolutely no reason why you cannot have both success and fulfillment. So in part 2, we're going to dive in deliberate purpose, specifically how to think about that, how to find that mission that you do deeply care for, and then how do you align that with companies that are also pursuing that mission. So I'll see you in there.